But I'm Brenna, she, her pronouns. I am the artistic director of a live dance collective and then one of the co-director producer people for NACHMO Boston. I don't know if we have official titles. And Karen and Nicole and I have been doing NACHMO Boston for, I don't know, I didn't do the math ahead of time, 6 years now? This is going to be 2025. That's wild. Yeah, I think that's 6 years.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I did a couple years of NACHMO Boston prior to asking Karen and Nicole to jump on board, because after a couple years it was growing and I realized that I couldn't do it all by myself. So they graciously jumped on board and we've developed what we have as NACHMO Boston now. So I'll let you guys introduce and then we can give our spiels.
I am Karen Krolock, she, her, also uses we a lot. I'm not sure exactly what that says about my pronouns, but I've been noticing that a lot this week. I am a very pale, middle-aged white woman with incredibly long, unmanageable platinum hair and more baggage under my eyes today than I brought with me on this little weekend trip. Um, uh, I live with a chronic health condition. So if at some point it looks like I'm either frozen or suddenly angry, I will turn my screen off. It's just me having pain. Or if I suddenly am making strange faces at people, it is not a comment on anybody. Um, I am one of the co-artistic directors of Monkey House, a nonprofit in the area that connects communities through choreography. And we, in addition to working on NACHMO, do a lot of programs in the area that work on helping choreographers get mentoring and resources that they need. So that may be useful as you go through this program. And I'll pass it over to Nicole.
Hello, I'm Nicole Harris. My pronouns are she, her. I am a 40-something-year-old white lady who almost always wears a whole lot of scarves. Um, I am the other co-artistic director of Monkey House. Karen and I have been working together for 24 years, making this magical Monkey House thing happen. I think that's all I got for now.
Cool. All right. So I guess I should probably start with like what is NACHMO in case people don't know that. That feels like the beginning. So NACHMO stands for National Choreography Month. And it was started in New York City. It came out of the idea, and I always forget what it's called, but there's a write a novel in a month program that happens in like November or something every year. And a couple people were like, why can't we do that with choreography? And so they did. And so NACHMO now exists nationwide, and there are, I think, still a few hubs worldwide, but each hub does its own thing. So we don't like, you know, have to follow any sort of particular script or anything like that. It's just kind of we connect with headquarters to tell them like how many people are participating and what our hub is doing. But NACHMO in different cities looks different. So if you've participated in NACHMO somewhere else, this may be different than what you have done there. And if you participate in NACHMO here and then you move and want to do NACHMO somewhere else, that city may also do something different. So over the past 8-ish years, particularly in the last 5 or 6, well, Nicole and Karen and I have been doing NACHMO. We have kind of figured out what best serves the Boston community. So we, for NACHMO in Boston, we basically have 3 tracks that you can participate in. So you can either create a piece of work for a live performance that this year will be happening in like mid-March. You can create a dance on film, which gets shown at the Malden Dance Mile, which is typically in May. Um, or you can create for creation's sake with no pressure towards performing or presenting any sort of work, just to kind of get your juices flowing. Yeah. Karen, do you want to talk about mentorship since that's your jam?
Yeah, so the one big thing that we require of everybody is that you participate in at least one mentoring session. And um, our mentoring sessions are designed to be supportive of you as an artist. And part of why we require this is because it's a way for people in the community to learn about each other's work, each other's processes, and to find out what might be helpful to each other as you see each other's work, not just for NACHMO, but at other events throughout the year. And it's really been something that we've seen that's helped to um, make connections in the kind of ecosystem of the dance community here, where people have a better understanding of what other artists are trying to accomplish. We believe that mentoring should be descriptive instead of proscriptive or prescriptive. We ask artists to come with questions for us about their work so that we can help provide what they need for where they are at that moment. And sometimes those questions are, is what I'm doing even valid or worth watching? P.S. The answer is almost always yes. Um, uh, the types of questions are entirely up to you. Some people come with very specific, like at minute 3.2, we have this thing that happens, and I want to make sure that it looks this way to audiences. Can you give feedback? But sometimes it's just, can you give me a sense of the words that people are thinking about when they're watching this to get a sense of whether it's connecting to what you're hoping people are thinking about with it. And our mentoring sessions have one of the three of us within them and then a guest mentor. And we develop our mentors off of the demographics of the people that are involved. So we try and get people who have different forms of dance that they're coming from, different intersectional identities that they're coming from, so that people are seeing more of themselves reflected in the mentorship panels. And it's also a great way to be able to meet other people within the community for our mentors, if they're new to the area or if they've been working in a specific program and are only meeting people because of people that go to Tufts or things like that. It's been a way to kind of, again, connect the community through how we've got our mentors coming in. And all of our mentors are people who subscribe to the same beliefs we do. I know mentoring can be very difficult for people if they've had bad mentoring experiences in the past. And if you're somebody who's had a really traumatic experience in the past, know that you can talk to us about that in your conversational application, and we can talk about ways to be able to make this easier for you. Also, as part of our conversational application, we will ask you if there's been anyone within the dance community who's ever made you feel dismissed, ridiculed, uncomfortable. And while we will not take action towards that person, we will make sure not to put you in a group with that person. We can't do anything from the perspective of like bigger than our program, but within our program, we can keep you in separate places so that you don't have to have that person working with you again. The mentoring sessions are 2 hours long, and unless we're leaving early, you should plan to be there for the full session, not just when you are going to be presenting. In part because we want to make sure that everybody who's in the room is giving feedback, not just the mentors. And it's important to us that you're there the whole time. If you have other dancers that are coming, they don't have to be there the whole time. If they want to, they absolutely can, but they don't have to be. And if you have other dancers who need to leave by a specific time, please let us know when you're setting up your mentoring session. We do have funding from the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Innovation Fund to help with accommodations that people may need during the mentoring sessions, dress rehearsal, and performances. So if there are specific things that you need or that one of your dancers needs, please let us know. And again, we can't do that for all of your own rehearsals, but we can do that for the ones that we are requiring through the mentoring sessions and through the dress rehearsal. Did I miss anything? Is that everything? Okay.
There are, so those mentoring sessions that Karen's talking about are the group mentoring sessions. We usually try to keep the group kind of small. so that everybody has a chance to talk about and share their work. But there are two other mentoring opportunities. One is that you can, oh, I forgot what they were for just a second, but they came back again. You can have a peer mentor. So if you're interested in working with somebody else within the program, you can decide for yourself what that mentoring would look like. It could be just like, hey, can you look at this video once and that's that? Or it could be like, we want to talk every day for the month of January. We ask people who are interested to give us a sense of what sort of time commitment they're hoping for from a peer-to-peer mentor. And then we try to pair people up with folks who want something similar. And then once we give you a mentor, you guys are off on your own and you guys can make that happen however you would like to. Sometimes January can be hard. We have big dreams at the beginning of January, and then we get 2 weeks in and it's like, yeah, I totally wanted to talk to you every day. And it turns out we're going to talk twice. And like sometimes that happens. It's hard to predict those things. But we all do our best to make sure that you're at least paired with someone who has the same dreams as you at the beginning of the month. And then you can also have one 30-minute one-on-one mentoring session with one of the three of us, or possibly a guest mentor, depending on what you're looking for mentorship in. And it can be anything from the choreography that you're working on specifically to like, I'm new to Boston and I don't know anybody, or I just recently started a company and I'm looking for ways that I can be fundraising, or whatever those things are that you're working on right in this moment. You can have one-on-one mentoring session with one of us about that thing. So those are the two other mentoring options. Those ones are optional.
And then one other thing to add is that if you are working with other dancers, Karen had mentioned that they are, of course, welcome at the mentorship sessions. However, as someone who works with a group of dancers, it can also be impossible to schedule a time where everybody can be at that session. So if you are working with other dancers, don't feel like you have to present what you're working on live at that point. Plenty of people come to a mentorship session with a rehearsal video because they're working with 5 people and it's just impossible to get 5 adults to all be available for the same 2 hours. So just throwing that out there also, that is how many people approach mentorship sessions. And our mentorship sessions, we'll talk about in the conversational application, but we have virtual and in-person options as well. Yeah. Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit about Creative Ground and applying for NACHMO? I think all of these people who are here have already done that, but for anybody who is watching and
Yeah.
needs that information.
So we want to make this whole application process as easy as possible. And there's a bunch of things that we need from you, as from any program. For this particular instance, we need like photos of you in your bio and things like that that we can use for promotional materials. And we know that on our end, having to generate those things every single time we do something can be a pain. And Creative Ground is this really great program that's run by NIFA, where you can make a profile and then you can be set up. You can find other artists that are doing similar things to you, or, you know, a school could go on there and say like, oh, I really need a dance artist that could teach this thing, and be able to find artists that way. And so we ask everybody set up a Creative Ground profile so that then all of that information that we need is just there already. Most of us don't have huge amounts that our photos and bios change from year to year. So if you set one up now, you might need to go in and edit a sentence in your bio or add a new photo next year, but you won't have to resend all of those things every year. They'll just be there on your profile that you just send that link in. Just to make it so that there's less work in the month of January, where there's a lot of things. We're going to email you a lot. We're going to ask you for a lot of things. We're trying to just limit how much extra stuff that we need from you in the course of January.
Karen and Nicole, I feel like those are like the major things. Are there other things that we want to make sure anybody an info session knows. Karen has one.
Yeah, this is Karen. Just that you understand why we do our applications in an interview conversational sort of way. Part of what we heard a couple of years ago was that the original applications that we had were challenging for people that had either uh, reading disabilities, cognitive disabilities, or language barriers within what they were doing. And so writing things out was really challenging. And so we tried one year doing a pilot program of conversational applications to see how that might work. And part of what we discovered as the three of us was that we really benefited from hearing from people directly and being able to have conversations with them each year to see like what they're working on, to hear about new topics that were challenges for people that we hadn't thought about before. And so part of what those are a time for us to both get all the information that we need for our applications from you, but also to just get a quick check-in with people. Um, One thing to know about NACHMO, up until now, we have not used this as a platform to decide whether or not someone belongs in NACHMO or not, but really to be able to see, like, can you make the commitment of the dates that we need people for as being our main way of deciding whether or not someone belongs in the program and whether we're a good fit for you rather than just whether you're a good fit for us. We want to make NACHMO as inclusive as possible, and we're open to a lot of different styles. The two things that tend to be problems for us are either people who are going to be uninterested or unavailable for being at a mentoring session, unavailable for the dates when we're doing the performances, or having work that is not going to be family friendly. And so needing to put that into the category of for development only. And some people don't want to participate in that. What we want to be able to point out this year, though, is that we're getting close to the maximum numbers of people that we can handle with NACHMO each year. And so that may, over the next year or two, be shifting a little bit. And we're going to be talking with the community about how we make those shifts happen so that, again, it doesn't feel like this used to be totally open to everyone. And now we're only taking X number of people, and people, have different reasons why it's impossible for them to sign up fast or whatever. So we want to try and make sure that what we're doing is still equitable, representative of the larger dance community, and giving space and priority both for people at all stages of their careers, not just either people that are young and emerging or people that have 20 years of experience. So just know that that's something that may be coming up as we're looking at how we continue to let NACHMO grow. Did I miss anything? Okay, great.
When you come in for your conversation, it is really, really helpful that you bring your calendar. We are going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about dates for performances, dates for mentoring sessions. We're going to give you 25 dates, and you can give us a yes, no, or maybe for each of them. Excuse me. And then from there, we'll select which mentoring session we put you in. And so the more information you can give us up front, the easier it is to make that happen. There have been a few people who have needed to wait and send us something the next day, but really being able to have that information at that conversation is super helpful.
I'm going to throw one more because Karen mentioned it in what she said just a second ago, but I'm going to throw it out there as a more clear thing for those who are new to NACHMO, that we do ask that all work be family friendly. And the other thing to know about creating pieces is if you're interested in the live performance, there is usually a cap of about 5 minutes on the work. So the family friendly portion just like doesn't mean that your work has to be like geared towards a 3-year-old. Like it just means that if a 3-year-old is in the audience, that it will be okay for them to be there. So you can still touch on, very heavy subjects if that's something that you are exploring. Really, if we kind of boil it down, no nudity. And we ask that if you're speaking in any way, that you avoid swearing, or if you have lyrics, that is avoided in those too. So, it's not, we're not asking you to create work for preschoolers, but we are asking that you consider that we try to have our live performances be open to anybody to come to.
Right. And that's live performance specifically. Like if you're working on something that doesn't fit into those categories, you can still participate in the mentoring sessions and participate in the program. We just can't, we are funded by people who need us to be able to have our work open to everybody. So we just can't present it in a public setting.
And this is Karen. And if this work continues to develop, if you could please credit NACHMO as being one of the people who has supported and helped in the development of the work, that would be greatly appreciated because, again, as our funders grow, it is important to them to be able to see the impact of their work. Yeah.
And this is, I'm like thinking of all of these things for people who are new. So NACHMO does not cost anything to participate in. We are lucky to have a lot of great funding, and it's been really important to us to eliminate that financial barrier, which we have been able to do in the past couple of years. So as far as what is required of you for participation, it's basically the creative ground profile, the group mentorship session, and then if you are choosing to present work, that it be family friendly. And honestly, what's required is a positive attitude. I feel like, an openness to engaging with other people in the community.
And this is Karen. We are aware that for a lot of people, being able to create work without getting funding from us to be able to pay people is challenging. And one of the things that we've talked about with a number of the artists in NACHMO is you don't have to have a fully finished draft that you're presenting. It can be something that is eventually going to have costumes and eventually going to have this huge prop that's part of it, or eventually be 20 people. And right now I can have 2 people that show this. So if you need help thinking through how to scale it so that it's possible within the limited financial resources, also talk with us about that, because we're aware that that can be something that makes people feel really overwhelmed or intimidated to get in to a program in December and then in January need to start figuring out how they fund an entire thing that's going to be presented. So don't feel like that's a barrier either. Come talk to us and we can talk through how to be able to make that work with the limited resources that you might have.
We are probably less strict with our National Choreography Month than other people. Our performance, if that's the track you're taking, isn't until the middle of March. We do not expect that on the last day of January you stop working on your piece and it's done and it's perfect and then you present it in March. We're going to offer mentoring sessions probably into early February because having a mentoring session the first week of January isn't helpful. No one started anything yet. So we tend to do like middle of January to early February and then use the rest of February and that beginning of March to do what you need to do to feel like you're ready to present. We are not going to like come police your rehearsals that you used more than just January. January is the kickoff for making something, not the completion of a thing.
I like we've done a good job. I think that we've covered pretty much what we need to.